Amid the storm in the Middle East, all eyes are on the White House. On July 7, a historic meeting is scheduled to take place between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump, two leaders renowned for their bold decisions and controversial foreign policy visions. Against the backdrop of ongoing violence in Gaza, the risk of renewed conflict between Iran and Israel, and hundreds of civilian lives at stake, this meeting is not merely a routine diplomatic event. It could be a turning point that determines the path to peace or reignites a chain of volatile confrontations in the Middle East. According to Mona Yacoubian, Senior Advisor and Director of the Middle East Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, GASIS, Gaza is likely to be the top priority in the discussion with President Trump's desire for a ceasefire. She stated that Trump has consistently signaled this intention in recent days, and it is seen as the primary focus.
So I think there are going to be several topics on the list. At the top of the list likely will be Gaza and President Trump's desire to see a ceasefire. He's been signaling this now for quite some days, and so I think that's going to be top of the list, maybe even announcement of a ceasefire, if not during the meeting, then shortly thereafter. We've seen a deal negotiated before, so this isn't the first time. It may likely mirror previous deals, so ceasefire for 60 days, hostage exchange over that time. This time, it's reported that there may be the redeployment of the Israeli Defense Forces, and also that Hamas has to agree to no longer have these sort of hostage release ceremonies that they've been doing.
There could be a Gaza deal next week. Yeah.
How optimistic are you?
I'm very optimistic, but look, it changes from day to day. It's been changing for years. It changed. As I came in, I inherited a very bad situation in many ways.
It's in the aftermath of a 12-day war and then a ceasefire that we're seeing President Trump return again to this theme of the need for diplomacy and stabilization in the Middle East. And of course, this is something that, in particular, Gulf Arab countries have been pushing hard for. And so with that backdrop, there is going to be a push to see if there can be a way to de-escalate tensions with Iran. However, I think it is important to note that we're seeing Iran actually potentially move in the other direction.
Well, we're going to have a meeting on Iran, obviously. The success, that was a great success, and blown to pieces the whole nuclear thing. I would say it's set back permanently. If they were going to do it again, they might as well start in a different location, because that location is totally demolished.
The tariffs on Israel are actually not as high as on many other countries. And so not sure to what extent, if at all, President Trump is going to be willing to move on that. Again, I think it's important to note that this meeting takes place in light of this pretty unprecedented move by the United States to enter into a conflict militarily in support of Israel and to ensure against the continuation of Iran's nuclear program. Having Prime Minister Netanyahu come to the White House and, not only sort of bask in a way, a military success in Iran, but also move toward a ceasefire in Gaza. I think for President Trump, this is going to be very important, not only to shore up his domestic base, but also to move forward on his sort of broader foreign policy agenda, which has really been focused on this idea of as he noted in his inaugural speech, President Trump as a peacemaker, and looking to sort of negotiate significant diplomatic deals in the Middle East. For Bibi Netanyahu, he's coming to Washington, I think, in a sense, as part of a victory lap following this war in Iran, and looking to continue to deepen his political bona fides and credibility by demonstrating his popularity, or at least his, let's say it this way, by demonstrating his strong standing with President Trump, which is a critical factor in Israeli politics. It's kind of an amazing contrast between what the mood was like or how the two leaders were interacting in April, where there was a lot of speculation actually about a lot of daylight between the US and Israel. And areas of tension and differences, with Iran being at the top of the list. And then that will stand, I think, in marked contrast to what we will likely see on Monday, where these two leaders really are quite aligned on Iran, and indeed have both intervened together militarily against Iran. And I think are going to look to then from there show also kind of a shared position with respect to where to go next.
On July 6, Reuters cited information from Hamas stating that they had responded with a positive spirit to a U.S.-mediated ceasefire proposal in the Gaza Strip and were prepared to participate in negotiations regarding the implementation of the agreement, which includes the potential release of hostages and discussions to end the conflict. Hamas wrote on its official website that the Hamas movement had completed internal consultations as well as discussions with related Palestinian factions and forces regarding the latest proposal from mediators aimed at ending the aggression against our people in Gaza. The movement provided its response to the brotherly mediators. Characterized by a positive spirit, Hamas is fully prepared with all seriousness to immediately engage in a new round of negotiations on the mechanism for implementing this framework. However, a Palestinian official from a militant group allied with Hamas stated that there are still concerns about humanitarian aid, passage through the Rafah crossing to Egypt, and clarity regarding the timeline for Israel's military withdrawal. According to the United Nations Office for Human Rights, on July 4th, at least 613 killings occurred at aid distribution points operated by the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Fund, GHF, and near humanitarian convoys operated by other relief groups, including the United Nations. OHCHR stated that their figures are based on multiple sources, such as information from hospitals, cemeteries, victims' families, Palestinian health authorities, non-governmental organizations, and partners on the ground. They noted that they are still verifying additional reports and cannot yet provide details on the locations of the killings.
So the latest figures that we have recorded 613 killings, both at GHF points and near humanitarian convoys. Now, this is a figure as of the 27th of June. Since then, I was reading our latest sitrep. There have been further incidents, 5 killed, 6 killed, 14-year-old boy shot in the head, another 14-year-old boy. We haven't compiled all these figures. And I'm getting reports from Ajit, the head of our OPT office, saying there was another big incident last night as well, which we're still trying to verify. Colleagues have pointed out the challenges of verifying information because we don't have eyes and ears on the ground. International press is not being allowed, and neither are we. We are doing what we can to try to verify these figures, but there's a time lag, and we will perhaps never be able to grasp the full scale of what's happening here because of the lack of access. On who is responsible, it is clear that the Israeli military has shelled and shot at Palestinians trying to reach the distribution points. How many killings, who is responsible for that? We need an investigation. We need access, we need an independent inquiry, and we need accountability for these killings.
I think you're muted, Rick. Maybe try again.
All right.
Go ahead.
So they've seen already for weeks daily injuries in the tens and hundreds. Majority coming from the so-called safe non-UN food distribution site. The hospital is now, you cannot even call it a general referral hospital. It's operating as one massive trauma ward.
While Washington prepares for the crucial meeting between the two leaders in Gaza, people continue to live in fear, clinging to faint hopes for a ceasefire agreement. The Middle East chessboard is shifting daily, and every statement made in the Oval Office may not only determine the course of the conflict, but also reshape the roles of the U.S. and Israel on the international stage. Will peace begin from this dialogue, or will the cycles of violence continue? Everything remains uncertain.